So if you think about it, for those of you that have been in a relationship for decades, you've been arguing your way to health throughout your marriage. And I want you to understand that that's normal and healthy. It's not icky and something to be avoided. Arguments. Getting into arguments. So many couples are intimidated by arguing, or maybe they've learned through their life that arguing's not good, and there's times where arguing isn't good. But if you think about it, arguing is one of those things that come with marriage. It comes with the relationship. And the stronger the relationship, the tighter the relationship, the more you're apt to feel like defensive or needing to be understood or needing to get your way in certain things. And in fact, 2/3 of what you argue about is what Dr. John Gottman calls perpetual arguing or perpetual conflict. And I don't want that to discourage you, but I want you to think about that. The idea that 2/3 of the disagreements that you're going to get in over and over again throughout your relationship. Is that a reason to not get into a relationship? No, it's a reason to understand that if you're going to be in a relationship, then you need to be prepared to argue, prepared to engage in conflict, and prepared to renegotiate agreements throughout the course of your marriage. And renegotiate your agreements maybe each time you're going to do something together. And so there's some agreements that you need to make about arguing. This training is about making those agreements that will help you argue healthy. And I think that the number one agreement, there's this number one, and then there's a whole bunch of others. And I probably would like to say that the first 3 of these agreements are probably the most important. The first one is, if you're in a marriage or heading towards a marriage, you're allies. You're on the same team. So if you like to be late for things and you don't like to be late for things, that doesn't put you on different teams. Or if you really believe that corporal punishment or spanking in a marriage is good, and your partner thinks that it's a horrible, abusive thing, it doesn't put you on different teams. Or if you think that your religious preference is different, makes you on different teams, it doesn't. If you're in a relationship where you're creating this nuclear family together, you will always be on the same team. And if you look at it that way, arguing takes on a whole new realm. Picture a sporting team. Picture like 2 teams on the basketball court. When 2 teammates get into an argument, one of them doesn't throw off his jersey and take the other team's jersey and put it on, and then they start playing against each other. They argue within the confines of being on the same team. They keep the same jersey on, and in doing that, they know that we have to play together. We have to play together to win this game. And so in an argument in a relationship, you and your lover have to do the same thing. Don't decide you're on a different team and go fight against your partner. Fight with your partner for the relationship. So number one agreement is you're allies and you're on the same team. You're not automatically on different sides of the world, different sides of the battlefront, fighting against each other. You're fighting with each other against a conflict for the relationship. The second agreement you need to make conflict healthy is remember that opinions and facts are very different. There are some in the postmodern psychology world that believe that there's no such thing as facts. Let's pretend that there is a few things that are just factual. Gravity is a fact. If someone's wearing a red tank top, it's a red tank top. It's not a different color. Now I get it. There can be shades of red, but the idea is that there is certain facts, but most everything is opinion. So if we're going to go to the lake and it's 78 degrees, and I say it's way too cold to go to the lake, and my wife says, no, 78 is hot. Man, we'll be jumping in the water to cool off. The only fact is it's 78 degrees. That's it. Everything else is our opinion. It can be my opinion that it's too cold to go to the lake, and it can be her opinion that it's hot and it's going to be fine to go to the lake. So how do we argue that? Well, first we go back to we're on the same team. We both want to be comfortable. So we might decide, let's go to the lake, but let's plan on building a little campfire that I can sit by. Or let's not go to the lake. Let's go to Boulevard Home Furnishing and just wander around and get the free popcorn and look at fancy stuff that they have, and let's do a whole different activity that we both like. Whatever the case may be, we don't begin by arguing that you're stupid for thinking it's too hot to go to the lake and you're stupid for thinking it's too cold. Because if you waste a lot of time beating the other one into submission on whether it's hot or cold at 78 degrees, you're not going to bring yourself closer. So I want you to take a moment, think about some perpetual arguments that you've been in, and jot down the facts versus the opinions. The third thinking error that we need to make an agreement on is the beginning of every argument. Your job is to not influence the other that you're right. At the beginning of every argument, the agreement is we're not going to try to influence each other. We're going to try to understand each other. So the very beginning, the first phase of every argument is after you've identified one problem, we'll get to that later. What is your different opinions about that? And what is the facts about that one problem? We're just trying to understand each other. We're not trying to be right, and we're not trying to influence the other. So many times couples take that shortcut. They jump right in and start trying to argue influence. Like, I just want you to see it my way. I want you to see it my way. Can you see how two people wanting to be believed that they're right is just going to cause and perpetuate argument to where it's just vicious, and it's not going to be productive, and it's not going to keep you on the same team. But if you start each argument by saying, please help me understand you, then it's going to be a win. We've covered the first three. Those first three seem to be the killers. All these others are for convenience. There's a bunch of other agreements I'm going to run through relatively quickly here. If you can get those top three, though, the rest of these will become super easy. This next one is super important. It's during an argument. I want you to talk with each other about how you do timeouts. Every couple has different needs for a timeout. Based on a lot of research, a 2-minute timeout can actually do a reset emotionally. So if I feel like I'm getting flooded and angry, just 2 minutes of not thinking about the conflict, thinking about something else, go for a walk, hold hands, go finish up a chore that you've got going. Don't take a 2-minute timeout and think about how stupid your partner is. Don't take a 2-minute timeout and think about how wrong they are. Take a 2-minute timeout and unflood and just kind of get yourself back centered on, this is my lover I'm arguing with, this is the person we're going to come out of this healthier, and I want you to take a moment, that moment, and really pull together. So what are your relationship timeout rules? I would suggest for the first timeout in every argument, don't do more than 15 minutes, but define the length of the timeout between 2 and 15 minutes, and define what you're going to do during that timeout. Next one is limit your discussion on super hot topics to 30 minutes. I think some can go a little longer, some can maybe just need to do less, but 30 minutes is a good rule of thumb. If we're talking about something that we're both really passionate about, set a timer. Both of you take your time to understand the other one and try to get to an agreement inside of 30 minutes. And what you might do is table it after 30 minutes and then come back in an hour. Or table it and then the next day pick up where you left off. But literally, couples that spend 2 or 3 hours grinding away tend to lose the focus of the actual, we're on the same team. They lose the focus of we're trying to get to an agreement, and they just start fighting. Okay, so 30 minutes. This next agreement, call it the 9 to 9 rule. No arguing between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. That means when you're getting ready for bed, laying in bed together, you're not going to start a difficult topic, because that's your sanctuary for making love. That's your sanctuary for cuddling. You don't go into the bedroom, lay down with your partner, and then turn to each other and start arguing. So 9 to 9, no arguing. Next one, no name calling. Every couple needs these, okay? No name calling, and we will not use offensive language during an argument. Next one, no physical or emotional abuse. Now, I know emotional abuse gets touchy because people have different ideas, but I'd like you to take a moment and talk with each other about what feels like physical abuse, what feels like emotional abuse. So if I pound my fist, I feel strongly about this, that could come across as physically abusive or emotionally abusive to someone that has never really experienced that. See, in my family of origin, throwing stuff across the room was pretty normal conflict. My wife's family of origin, they didn't even raise their voice and they never cursed. My family of origin, they cursed through arguments nonstop, and it wasn't even intimidating. They did it so much. So we've had to negotiate, and I want you to take a moment and together decide what feels physically scary and what feels emotionally unsafe. Identify one issue at a time when you're arguing. So many couples start arguing about being on time, and then you're arguing about helping with the kids, and then you're arguing about deciding which car to drive, and then you're arguing about whether church and date night's the same thing. And next thing you know, you got 18 arguments on the table because there's all these tentacles. You have to be disciplined to create a healthy argument. So I want you to take a moment together and decide, how are we going to define the argument and maintain it? So some couples couples write the argument at the top of a yellow legal pad. Here's the thing we're going to get to an agreement about. And every time we go off of that topic, we're going to write down the new topic and put it aside and come back to it later and finish the one we started with. That's a super easy one to do. Come up with your own way to maintain one argument at a time. Never argue while you're driving somewhere. Don't argue during a drive. Don't argue when you're in bed. Don't argue in front of the kids or other family members. Really, don't show up at your partner's work. Don't call your partner at work and start arguing over the phone. And don't argue via text or email. Find a time, peel away, sit out on the back patio with a cup of orange juice and have your argument there. Don't do it in awkward places. Here's one that so many couples neglect because they forget that it's super important. I believe that you have heavenly parents that are involved in your relationship. And so I would invite you, if you're not religious, I got an idea for you, but I would invite you to start and end each argument with a prayer. Petition your heavenly parents to be involved in the argument, to somehow enhance your understanding of each other. Pray for each other. And then finish your argument with an affirming prayer for each other and thank God for each other. If you start and end each argument with a prayer, not only will it give here's the beginning and here's the end of this argument, it sends the right message, but it also keeps it contained to that moment, that 30 minutes or that hour that you've spent on the conflict. And now you move on to other things, and you are either going to meet again on it tomorrow or as soon as the kids are in bed. There's some kind of an affirming beginning and ending that has a prayer involved. Now, if you're not religious, another thing you can do is affirmations. Begin an argument with a vow to begin and an affirming ending to the argument where you thank each other for being present and you invite each other to be present in an opening and a closing affirmation. You can see how all of these things can lend themselves to keeping you on the same team and creating healthy agreements towards more passion, more intimacy, more love in the relationship. If you can't do any of these things or you really struggle, my final commitment is seek help. Call us over at the Ascend Counseling Center. Talk with a good friend that is good at negotiating agreements. Get online at Gottman Connect or Robert Weiss, Susan Johnson group. There's all these people out there that have articles and insights in how to argue fair. For heaven's sake, don't just get polarized and put on different teams and fight until you divorce. Pull together. If your arguing is not making you more intimate, more close, and have more fun, you're doing it wrong. So literally argue your way to a healthy relationship. That's what I want to challenge you to do. Subscribe, get our other videos on arguing and on fidelity and other topics that we're talking about, and we hope to see you soon.